Every morning at exactly 4 o'clock, when the sky was still dark and the city was silent, a thin old man walked slowly down the empty road. In his hands was a long wooden broom. His steps were slow but steady. His name was Karim. Most people never noticed him. The shops were closed. The street lights were still on. Only stray dogs and cold wind kept him company. He started working before the sun came up. He swept dust, plastic bags, dry leaves, and broken glass from the road. He cleaned the same street every single day. In summer, sweat ran down his face. His shirt stuck to his back. The heat burned his skin. In winter, his hands turned red and stiff. His breath came out like smoke in the cold air. During rain, his clothes got wet and heavy. But he still worked. For 20 years, he never missed a day. When the city finally woke up, people rushed past him. Cars honked loudly. Shopkeepers opened their doors. Children walked to school. Everyone was busy, but no one really saw him. Some people covered their noses when they walked by him. Some complained that he was too slow. A few laughed at his old torn shoes. "Why don't you buy new clothes?" one man once said with a smirk. Karim only smiled softly and continued sweeping. He lived in a very small room at the end of the market street. The room had cracked walls and a single weak bulb hanging from the ceiling. There was one old bed, one chair, and a small stove in the corner. That was all. He did not have a television. He did not have a phone. He did not even have a fan that worked properly. Every evening after work, he would sit quietly on his bed and count his money. Slowly, carefully, one note at a time. Then he would place the money inside a small metal box under his bed. He locked it every night. No one knew about that box. Not the shopkeepers. Not the neighbors. No one. People thought Karim was just a poor, lonely old man with nothing in his life. They believed he worked because he had no other choice. But they were wrong. He was not just sweeping streets. He was building something. Something big. Something important. One afternoon, a young tea seller named Imran watched Karim closely. Imran had worked in the market for years. He had seen Karim every single day. But that day, something felt different. Karim looked tired. More tired than usual. His back was slightly bent. His hands were shaking while holding the broom. Imran walked toward him and said, "Cha-cha, why do you still work so hard? You are old now. You should rest." Karim paused. He looked at the young boy and gave a gentle smile. "Some promises are bigger than rest," he said quietly. Imran did not understand what he meant. Promise? What promise? Karim never explained. Instead, he went back to sweeping. That night, when the market became silent again, Karim walked slowly back to his room. He closed the door and sat on the edge of his bed. His eyes looked tired, but there was something else in them. Hope. He pulled out the metal box and opened it carefully. Inside were bundles of old notes tied with thread. Some were worn and faded. Some were new. He touched them gently. Each note had a story. Each coin carried a memory. He whispered softly to himself, "Not yet. Almost there." Then he closed the box again. Outside, the city was full of lights and noise. People were laughing in restaurants. Families were watching television. Friends were planning holidays. But inside that small dark room, a man with nothing was quietly preparing to change everything. The next morning, just like always, Karim was back on the street at 4 o'clock. A group of teenagers walked past him and laughed. "Look at him," one said. "He has been sweeping this road forever." "Yes," another replied, "and he will probably die doing it." Karim heard them. He did not react. He kept sweeping. Because what they did not know was this. He was not saving for himself. He was not working for today. He was waiting for a day that would surprise everyone. A day that would make the same people who ignored him stop in shock. A day that would show the city that even the smallest person can carry the biggest heart. For 20 years, people saw only a street sweeper. But soon, they would see something else. And when they did, they would never ignore him again. 20 years earlier, Karim was not the quiet old man people saw on the street. He was younger then, stronger, And he was not alone. He lived in a small rented house with his wife Amina and their 6-year-old daughter Noor. The house was tiny, but it was full of laughter. Noor's voice filled every corner of that home. She loved to draw pictures on the walls. She loved to run into her father's arms when he came back from work. Even if he was tired, Kareem always lifted her up and spun her around. "Abba, one day I will become a doctor," she would say proudly. Kareem would smile and kiss her forehead. "And I will be your first patient," he would reply. They did not have much money. Kareem was already working as a street sweeper back then. His salary was small, just enough for food and rent. But they were happy with simple things. Then one winter night, everything changed. Noor started coughing. First, it seemed normal, just a cold. But after 2 days, her fever became very high. She was burning with heat. Her small body shook. Amina panicked. "We must take her to the hospital," she cried. Kareem wrapped Noor in a blanket and rushed through the cold streets. The hospital was crowded. People were shouting. Nurses were running everywhere. After checking Noor, the doctor's face became serious. "She has a serious infection," the doctor said. "She needs treatment immediately." Kareem felt his heart drop. "How much will it cost?" he asked softly. The doctor told him the amount. It felt like the ground disappeared under his feet. It was more money than he had ever seen at one time. Kareem begged. He borrowed from neighbors. He sold Amina's small gold earrings. He even sold his only warm coat. But it was still not enough. For 3 days, he stayed beside Noor's bed. He held her small hand and prayed. On the 4th night, Noor looked at him with weak eyes. "Abba," she whispered. "Yes, my Noor," he replied, trying not to cry. "When I grow up, I want to help sick children. I don't want them to feel scared like this." Kareem's hands started shaking. "You will," he said quickly. "You will grow up and help everyone." But deep inside, he knew the truth was slipping away. That night, the machines in the hospital made strange sounds. Doctors rushed in. Amina screamed. And within minutes, Kareem's world became silent. Too silent. He felt like his heart had been pulled out of his chest. He could not cry at first. He just stood there, staring at the empty bed. The next morning, he buried his daughter with his own hands. The small white cloth around her body is something he never forgot. After that day, his house felt empty. No drawings on the wall. No small shoes near the door. No laughter. Amina tried to stay strong, but sadness slowly broke her too. She passed away a few years later, unable to carry the pain any longer. Now Kareem was alone. Completely alone. One night, months after Noor's death, Kareem found her small notebook under the bed. Inside were drawings of hospitals and smiling children. On one page, she had written in simple handwriting, "I will help poor children for free." Kareem held the notebook close to his chest and finally cried like a child. That night, he made a promise. If he could not save his daughter, he would save someone else's. He did not know how. He did not know when. But he decided one thing. He would start saving money. Every coin. Every extra rupee. He stopped buying new clothes. He stopped eating meat. He stopped spending money on anything that was not necessary. People thought he was strange. But they did not know he was building something. He began to count his savings every night. Slowly, the small pile grew. 1 year passed. Then 5. Then 10. There were days when he felt weak. Days when his body hurt so much he wanted to quit. But whenever he felt tired, he remembered Noor's voice in the hospital. "I want to help sick children." That sentence became his strength. 20 years later, people only saw an old street sweeper with torn shoes. They did not see the father who lost everything. They did not see the promise he carried in his heart every single day. They did not know that every sweep of his broom was another step toward fulfilling his daughter's dream. And soon, that promise would finally be kept. After Noor and Amina were gone, Kareem's world became quiet. Too quiet. The small house that once felt warm now felt cold, even in summer. The walls no longer had laughter. The air no longer carried the smell of Amina's cooking. It felt like life had packed its bags and left. But Kareem did not leave. Instead, he woke up the next morning at 4 o'clock, just like always. He picked up his broom, and he went back to work. At first, people thought he would stop working. They thought he would break under the weight of his pain. But Kareem did the opposite. He worked more. He swept faster. He stayed longer. He took extra streets when someone was absent. The supervisor once asked him, "Why are you working so much at your age?" Kareem only replied, "I have something important to finish." He never explained. Every evening, he returned to his small room. He would cook simple food, rice and lentils, sometimes only dry bread with tea. He did not complain. After eating, he would sit on his old bed and take out the metal box. That box became his only secret. Inside were small bundles of notes. Some were old and folded many times. Some had tape on the corners. He counted them slowly. 1, 2, 3. Every note reminded him of one more day closer to his promise. There were many days when life tested him. One summer afternoon, the heat was so strong that even the street dogs hid in the shade. Kareem felt dizzy while sweeping. His vision blurred. He fell to his knees. Some people looked at him. No one stopped. After a few minutes, he stood up again. He picked up the broom. And he continued. Another year, heavy rain flooded the market area. Water reached his ankles. Trash floated everywhere. It was dirty and smelled terrible. Other workers refused to come. Kareem showed up. He worked in the rain for hours. His clothes were soaked. His hands were wrinkled from water. But he smiled slightly, because rainy days meant extra pay. Extra pay meant more savings. More savings meant he was closer to his dream. One winter, he became very sick. His chest hurt badly when he breathed. A kind pharmacist told him to rest. "You are not young anymore," the man said. "You must take care of yourself." Kareem nodded politely, but the next morning he was back on the street. He could not afford to rest. Rest was expensive. Dreams were expensive. Sacrifice was cheaper. Years passed quietly. New shops opened in the market. Old shopkeepers retired. Children grew up. But Kareem stayed the same. Same broom. Same street. Same silent determination. People began to see him as part of the road itself. Like a tree. Like a lamp post. Always there. Never noticed. Some young boys used to make fun of him. "Cha-cha, when will you become rich?" They laughed. Kareem would smile gently and say, "Soon." They thought he was joking. They did not know that in his small metal box, the money was slowly growing. 10 years passed. Then 15. His hair turned completely white. His back bent slightly forward. His hands became rough like sandpaper. But his eyes still carried the same fire. The fire of a promise. Sometimes at night, when the loneliness felt heavy, he would take out Noor's small notebook. He kept it carefully wrapped in cloth. He would open the page where she wrote, "I will help poor children for free." He would touch the words softly, and he would whisper, "I am trying, my daughter. I am trying." There were moments when he almost gave up. Once, thieves broke into his room. They searched everywhere. They stole his old stove and some clothes, but they did not find the metal box, because Kareem had hidden it inside a loose brick in the wall. When he saw his broken door, his heart raced. The first thing he checked was the box. It was safe. He sat down on the floor and cried in relief, not because of the stolen items, but because the dream was still alive. 20 years is a long time. Most people change their goals many times in 20 years. But Kareem never changed his. Every coin he saved carried his pain. Every note carried his hope. The city thought he was just surviving. But in truth, he was building something bigger than anyone could imagine. He was not saving money. He was collecting second chances. And soon, the time would come to open that metal box for the last time. The city that ignored him for 20 years would finally understand. The quiet street sweeper was never small. He was just preparing for something extraordinary. For 20 years, Kareem protected one thing more than his own life. The metal box. It was small, old, and scratched from the outside. No one would ever think it carried something important. It looked like a box used to keep tools or old papers. But inside it was a dream. Kareem kept it hidden behind a loose brick in the wall of his small room. Every night before sleeping, he would quietly check that brick. He would press it gently, making sure it was still firm. No one knew. At least that is what he thought. One evening, a young delivery boy named Samir noticed something strange. Samir often passed by Kareem's room while delivering parcels. He had always been curious about the old man who worked so hard. That night, Samir saw Kareem entering his room carrying a small cloth bag. The old man looked around carefully before closing the door. Samir felt curious. Why would a poor street sweeper act so secretive? He moved closer to the broken window. The curtain inside was thin. Through the small gap, Samir could see Kareem sitting on the floor. Kareem pulled out the loose brick from the wall. Samir's eyes widened. From inside the wall, Kareem slowly removed the metal box. He placed it gently on the floor, like it was something precious. Then he opened it. Inside were bundles of money. Many bundles. Samir's heart started beating fast. How can he have so much money? He whispered to himself. He watched as Kareem counted every note slowly. Not like a greedy man. Not like someone who wanted more. But like someone checking if something important was safe. When Kareem finished counting, he smiled softly. It was not a smile of pride. It was a smile of relief. Then he carefully placed the box back into the wall and covered it with the brick again. Samir ran back home with a racing mind. The next morning, he told the tea stall owner. "Do you know Kareem Chacha has a box full of money?" he said excitedly. The tea stall owner laughed at first. "Impossible," he said. "He barely buys tea." But rumors spread quickly in the market. By afternoon, everyone was whispering. Maybe he stole it. Maybe he found treasure. Maybe he is pretending to be poor. People began to look at Kareem differently. Some looked at him with suspicion. Some with jealousy. One shopkeeper walked up to him and said loudly, "Old man, I heard you are hiding something." Kareem paused but did not reply. Another man said, "Why are you acting poor if you have money?" Kareem continued sweeping. He did not defend himself. He did not explain. He just worked. That silence made people even more curious. A few young men even thought about breaking into his room at night. They imagined the box full of cash. They imagined how rich they could become. But something stopped them. Maybe it was fear. Or maybe it was respect for the old man who had never harmed anyone. That evening, Kareem returned home earlier than usual. He had noticed the strange looks. He closed his door and sat quietly. For the first time in years, he felt worried. Not about the money, but about the dream. If someone stole the box, 20 years of sacrifice would disappear in one night. He stood up and removed the box from the wall. He opened it again. The money was still there. He touched it gently and whispered, "Just a little longer." His eyes were calm. He was not afraid for himself. He was afraid that the promise would break. Outside, the rumors continued. Some said Kareem must be planning something big. Others said he would run away soon. But Kareem had no plans to run. He had waited too long. The next morning, something unexpected happened. The market supervisor called Kareem to his office. "I have heard stories," the supervisor said seriously. "People say you have been hiding money. If you have done something wrong, tell me now." Kareem looked at him quietly. "I have done nothing wrong," he said softly. "Then what is the money for?" the supervisor asked. Kareem remained silent for a few seconds. Then he replied, "You will know soon." Those words spread through the market like fire. "You will know soon." What did that mean? Was he planning to leave? Was he planning to buy something big? The mystery grew stronger. That night, Kareem did something unusual. Instead of hiding the box back in the wall, he kept it beside his bed. He looked at it for a long time. 20 years. 20 years of pain, hunger, cold, and loneliness. All inside that box. Tomorrow, he thought. Tomorrow is the day. He lay down slowly. Outside, the city lights flickered. Inside the small dark room, the metal box waited. And the secret it carried was about to change everything. At 4 o'clock in the morning, the street was empty. But something was different. The road was dirty. Dry leaves were scattered everywhere. Plastic bags were flying in the cold wind. Kareem was not there. For 20 years, he had never missed a single morning. Not in heavy rain. Not in burning heat. Not even when he was sick. But today, his broom was not moving across the road. At 6 o'clock, shopkeepers began opening their doors. One of them looked around and frowned. "Where is the old man?" he asked. "Maybe he is late," someone replied. But Kareem was never late. By 8 o'clock, the street looked worse. Trash piled near the shops. Dust covered the ground. The market supervisor grew angry. "This is unacceptable," he said loudly. "Where is he?" Some people exchanged strange looks. "Maybe he ran away," one man whispered. "With the money," another added. The rumors from the metal box had not been forgotten. By noon, the gossip was louder than ever. "He must have escaped at night. I knew something was strange about him. He fooled all of us." Samir, the delivery boy who had seen the box, felt uneasy. He did not want to believe Kareem would run away like that. He decided to check the small room at the end of the street. A few curious shopkeepers followed him. When they reached the door, it was closed. Samir knocked. No answer. He knocked again. Silence. The supervisor pushed the door gently. It was unlocked. The door creaked open slowly. Inside, the room was almost empty. The old bed was still there. The chair was still there. The small stove sat quietly in the corner. But the metal box was gone. A heavy silence filled the room. "He took it," someone said. "Of course he did," another replied. "He fooled us for years." But Samir noticed something strange. The room did not look like someone who ran away in a hurry. Kareem's old clothes were still folded neatly. His worn shoes were placed carefully near the bed. On the bed lay a small notebook. Samir picked it up. Inside were drawings made by a child. Simple drawings of a small hospital. Smiling children. A man standing beside them. At the bottom of one page were the words written in childish handwriting. "I will help poor children for free." Samir felt his throat tighten. He remembered Kareem's words. "You will know soon." Suddenly, the story did not feel like escape anymore. It felt like something else. Meanwhile, the market became chaotic. Without Kareem, the street was a mess. People realized how much work he had done every day. Some shopkeepers tried sweeping, but after 10 minutes they gave up. "It is harder than it looks," one man admitted quietly. By afternoon, the supervisor received a phone call. His expression changed. He listened carefully. Then he slowly hung up. Everyone around him waited. "What happened?" someone asked. The supervisor cleared his throat. "There is a small building in the poor district," he said slowly. "It opened this morning." "So?" a shopkeeper replied impatiently. "It is a child care center," the supervisor continued. "Free treatment for sick children." People stared at him, confused. "And what does that have to do with Kareem?" Samir asked. The supervisor looked around at all of them. "It was paid for," he said softly, "by a man named Kareem." The street became silent. No one spoke. No one moved. The supervisor continued. "The building owner just called me. He said Kareem paid the final amount yesterday. He asked for nothing in return. He only wanted the center to open today." Samir felt tears in his eyes. "He did not run away," he whispered. "He was building something." The shopkeepers who once laughed at Kareem looked down at the dirty ground. They remembered how they had shouted at him, how they had accused him, how they had believed the worst about him. And now, the truth felt heavier than any shame. Kareem had not disappeared. He had finished his promise. That evening, a few people from the market quietly went to the poor district. There it stood, a simple white building. On the front wall was a small blue board. Noor Child Care Center. Below it were the words, "Free medical help for poor children." Through the open door, they saw small beds, clean white sheets, a doctor speaking gently to a worried mother. And in the corner, standing quietly near the wall, was Kareem. He looked smaller than ever. But somehow he also looked bigger. A little girl walked out of a treatment room holding her mother's hand. She smiled weakly but happily. Kareem looked at her, and his eyes filled with tears. He had not run away. He had arrived. And the people who once ignored him were now standing outside, realizing they had never truly known the man who swept their streets for 20 years. The street was still dirty that day, but something else had been cleaned. The city's heart. The small white building stood quietly in the poor district of the city. It was not big. It was not fancy. There were no balloons, no music, no cameras. But inside that building, something beautiful was happening. Children were being treated for free. The board outside clearly read, Noor Child Care Center. Below it were smaller words, free medical help for poor children. When the shopkeepers from the market slowly walked inside, they could not believe their eyes. Clean white walls, simple beds, a small pharmacy shelf, 2 young doctors talking kindly to worried parents. Everything looked simple, but everything looked full of purpose. Near the back wall stood Kareem. He wore the same old clothes, the same worn shoes. His hands still looked rough from years of sweeping. But today his face was different. It was calm, peaceful. The market supervisor stepped closer. Is this your doing? He asked softly. Kareem nodded. Yes, he said quietly. The room fell silent. Samir, the delivery boy, stepped forward. You used all your savings for this? He asked. Kareem looked at the children around him. Yes, he replied. Why? One shopkeeper whispered. Kareem did not answer immediately. He slowly walked to a small frame hanging on the wall. Inside the frame was a drawing made by a child, a hospital, smiling children, and a simple sentence, I will help poor children for free. Kareem touched the frame gently. My daughter drew this, he said. The shopkeepers looked at each other in surprise. I could not save her, Kareem continued softly, but I could keep her dream alive. His voice did not shake. He had cried enough over the years. Now he only felt quiet strength. A woman sitting on one of the beds was holding her young son. The boy looked weak but hopeful. The doctor came out and smiled. He will be fine, the doctor said. The mother began to cry with relief. She looked at Kareem and folded her hands in gratitude. May God bless you, she said. Kareem lowered his eyes. He was not used to people thanking him. For 20 years, he had only heard complaints. Now he was hearing blessings. One of the shopkeepers slowly stepped closer. I am sorry, he said quietly. We thought you ran away. Kareem looked at him and smiled gently. It is okay, he replied. He did not hold anger. He did not hold bitterness. He only held his promise. Outside the building, more people began to gather. Word had spread quickly. Some came out of curiosity. Some came with sick children. Some came to see if the story was true. It was true. Every single rupee Kareem had saved was used to rent the building, buy beds, pay doctors for the first year, and fill the pharmacy with medicine. He had kept nothing for himself. When the supervisor asked, Where will you live now? Kareem simply said, In the same room. You gave everything, Samir said in disbelief. Kareem looked around at the children again. I did not give everything, he replied. I kept what mattered. That evening, something unexpected happened. The shopkeepers who once laughed at him began talking among themselves. One said, We should help. Another nodded. We earn every day because this market runs well. And he kept our street clean for 20 years. Within hours, they collected money. Not out of guilt, but out of respect. They walked inside and placed the money on the small wooden table near Kareem. This is for the next year, the supervisor said. Kareem's eyes widened slightly. You do not have to, he said. We want to, Samir replied. For the first time in many years, Kareem felt something he had not felt since his family was alive. He felt supported. He felt seen. The little girl who had been treated earlier walked up to him again. She held a small flower in her hand. This is for you, uncle, she said shyly. Kareem bent down slowly and took the flower. his eyes filled with tears, not tears of pain, but tears of completion. 20 years of early mornings, 20 years of hunger, 20 years of silence. All of it had led to this moment. He was no longer just a street sweeper. He was the man who kept a promise. As the sun began to set outside the building, golden light entered through the window, touched the white walls, touched the smiling children, and it touched the old man standing quietly in the corner. The city that once ignored him was now learning from him. The big surprise was not just the building. The big surprise was his heart. And tomorrow something even more powerful would happen.